Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. What a joy to be here with you this morning, reading Srila Prabhupada's translation and commentary of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So, this particular verse is from the 6th canto, chapter 16. King Chitraketu meets the Supreme Lord. And for those who may not have been able to follow all of the classes, I'll just do a quick summary to give some context to this verse. Okay, so King Chitraketu was a very powerful king who had everything he wanted except one thing. What was that? He had no son, he had no heir. So he enlisted the aid of some sages to help him acquire a son. And the sages warned him that this son will bring you happiness and distress. What is it? Harsha Shoka? Yeah, so you'll have a son, but he'll make you happy and also distress. So King Chitraketu was thinking, all right, he'll be a teenager. He'll be a little rebellious, so I can tolerate this. So they went ahead with the ceremony. The son was born. However, the king had many wives, and the wives who did not have the opportunity to bear the king's son became very jealous. The wife who bore this son became the king's favorite. They were always with the little boy. So in their intense feelings of envy, they conspired to poison the baby, which they did. So when the king and his wife came and found their deceased young son in the cradle, they were so distraught, so brokenhearted, you can imagine. This is the worst pain a human being can experience emotionally, is the death of a child. It just defies the ordinary course of things. So as the king and his wife were lamenting, the sages again returned, Narada Muni, to instruct the king about what had just transpired. So the sage came and said, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to bring the boy back to life? Because the sages had such power. So the parents said, please, yes. So again, the son stood up, magically, amazingly, mystically, he stood up. But instead of saying, oh, mother, father, he said, who are you? So the parents said, we're your parents, we're your loving mother and father. And the child said, what did the child say? Which one? I've had so many mothers and fathers, which ones are you? So in this way, through the child, through the jiva in the body of this child, Narada Muni instructed the king in how transitory and temporary all of our relationships, all of these joys of life really are. Then Narada Muni gave to King Chitraketu a series of instructions in the form of mantras, which the king then began chanting with great determination motivated by the intense pain which he had just experienced. So as the king proceeded to repeat these instructions given by his guru, in a very short time, just in a few days, he began to gain enlightenment, and then amazingly proceeded to be able to see the Lord personally out of his sincere devotion. So this is very instructive in and of itself. Sometimes the most difficult setbacks in our lives are great incentive to turn to the Lord. So in King Chitraketu's case, he got this amazing opportunity to have darshan of the Lord and began reciting spontaneously beautiful prayers in praise of Lord Krishna. So today's verse is one of those prayers. And in this particular section of the Bhagavatam, it's very unusual because the Sanskrit prayers are not in meter. They're in very irregular, asymmetrical meter. So I'm not even going to attempt to chant that. You see how the lines are of varying lengths? The first one is, I think, 10 syllables, 14 syllables, 9 syllables, and 12 syllables. If anyone knows a melody for that, please let me know. 'Cause I don't. All right, well then with your permission, we'll just read the synonyms to get, responsively, please. Can we scroll up a bit? Yes. Parama Anu, of the atomic particle. Parama Mahato, and of the biggest. The result of the combination of atoms. Tvam, you, Adi Anta, in both the beginning and the end. Antara, and in the middle. Varti, existing. Traya Viduraha, although without beginning, end, or middle. Adau, in the beginning. Ante, at the end. Api, also. Cha, and. Satvanam, of all existences. Yat, which. Dhruvam, permanent. Tat, that. Eva, certainly. Antarale, in the middle. Api, also. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. You exist in the beginning, middle, and end of everything. From the most minute particle of the cosmic manifestation, the atom, to the gigantic universes and total material energy. Nonetheless, you are eternal, having no beginning, end, or middle. You are perceived to exist in these three phases, and thus you are permanent. When the cosmic manifestation does not exist, you exist as the original potency. Okay, let's read this all in unison, please. You exist in the beginning, middle, and end of everything, from the most minute particle of the cosmic manifestation, the atom, to the gigantic universes and total material energy. Nonetheless, you are eternal, having no beginning, end, or middle. You are perceived to exist in these three phases, and thus you are permanent. When the cosmic manifestation does not exist, you exist as the original potency. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The Brahma Samhita says, Advaitam achyutam anadyam ananta rupam adyam parana purusham navayovanam cha vedesha durlabam adurlabam atma bhaktau govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, Krishna, who is the original person, absolute, infallible, without beginning, although expanded into unlimited forms. Still the same, original, the oldest, and the person always appearing as a fresh youth. Such eternal, blissful, all-knowing forms of the Lord cannot be understood, even by the best Vedic scholars, but they are always manifest to pure, unalloyed devotees. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no cause, for He is the cause of everything. The Lord is beyond the workings of cause and effect. He is eternally existing. In another verse, the Brahma Samhita says, Andantarasta paramanu chayantarastam. The Lord exists within the gigantic universe and within the atom. The descent of the Lord into the atom and the universe indicates that without his presence, nothing could factually exist. Scientists say that water is a combination of hydrogen and oxygen, but when they see a vast ocean, they are puzzled about where such a quantity of hydrogen and oxygen could have come from. They think that everything evolved from chemicals. But where did the chemicals come from? They do not know. Since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of all causes, he can produce immense quantities of chemicals to create a situation for chemical evolution. We actually see that chemicals are produced from living entities. For example, a lemon tree produces many tons of citric acid. The citric acid is not the cause of the tree, rather the tree is the cause of the acid. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of everything. He is the cause of the tree that produces the citric acid, bijam mam sarva bhutanam. Devotees can see that the original potencies causing the cosmic manifestation are not in chemicals, but in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for he is the cause of the chemicals. Everything is caused or manifested by the energy of the Supreme Lord. And when everything is annihilated or dissolved, the original potency enters the body of the Supreme Lord. Therefore this verse says, Advante pi ja sattvanam yad dhruvam tat evantare pi. The word dhruvam means permanent. The permanent reality is Krishna, not this cosmic manifestation. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, aham adir hi devanam and matak sarvam pravartante. Krishna is the original cause of everything. Arjuna recognized Lord Krishna as the original person. Purusham shasvatam divyam adi devam ajam vibhum. And the Brahma Samhita describes him as the original person, Govindam adi purusham. He is the cause of all causes, whether at the beginning, at the end, or in the middle. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. These prayers spoken by King Chitraketu are very poignant. He is recognizing in his pain how Krishna is the cause of everything and how everything has a beginning, middle, and an end. In the second canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, when Krishna meets the engineer of the universe, Lord Brahma, he gives him 4 cogent and salient instructions, very brief instructions, the Chatur Shloki, the 4 essential verses of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So the first one addresses this point, aham evasam evagre, nandyad sarasat param, paschade tachjamani, pascharaham cha etachja, yo vishishyeta som smyaham. This means that, and again, the very first thing that Krishna says to his student, Brahma, about this empty universe that he's just entered, is that before this universe existed, before this cosmic creation, I was there. And while it's going on, I will be there. And after it's finished, paschad means end, when it's finished, I will still be there. So all along, Krishna is there, and the universe is coming and going, and our loved ones, our families, our finances, our adventures in life, all our aspirations and hopes, they're coming and going. But all the time, Krishna is there. This is the first lesson of Krishna consciousness, to understand God's constant presence. After all, we talk about being Krishna conscious. This means to be aware of the existence, of the presence of God all the time. Generally, we think in terms, we are self-conscious. And I don't just mean introverted. I mean, we're just thinking about things from our own perspective. We're thinking about how situations affect us, and we're thinking about what we're going to do, our plans, our ambitions, our regrets, our aspirations. This cosmic manifestation is infected by these 3 modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. So when we're in the mode of ignorance, we're looking backwards. We're lamenting, why didn't I say this? Why didn't I do that? Why did I choose this and not that? When we're in the mode of passion, we're looking forwards. What am I going to do? What will my next move be? What is my plan? How am I going to accomplish this? So ignorance and passion keep us from being present in the moment. Being present in the moment is the mode of goodness. And when we are present in the moment, naturally we're in a position to give our full hearts and faculties and minds to the situation that's right in front of us. So this is why the mode of goodness is so important in spiritual life. It is a gateway to transcendence. To be present in the moment, to give up the influences of passion and ignorance, hankering and lamenting, greed and depression. To give up these influences and be present in the moment then opens the door to realizing Krishna's permanent presence, which is constant at every moment of our lives. Krishna is always there, but how often are we thinking about him? How often are we conscious of him? How often are we evaluating things from his point of view and not our point of view? This is the great disease of material life. Krishna is there, and he's so willing at any moment to reciprocate with our devotion, with our love, with any little effort we make to reach him. Patram pushpam palam toyam yome bhakta prayachati. He says in Bhagavad Gita that if one just offers me a fruit, a flower, a leaf, flower, fruit, or water, I will accept it. These four items are listed in this way because a very simple reason. In the springtime, what happens to the tree? What do we see? Before the flowers, we see the leaves, right? And then in the summertime, when the tree is maturing, then what comes out? Or in the springtime, the flowers come. And then in the fall, when the flowers mature, what is on the tree? And then the fruit's there. And then in the wintertime, at least in the part of the world where I come from, most of the trees shed all their leaves, and still one can find somewhere some water, right? So spring, summer, fall, or winter, there's no excuse to say, I can't find something to offer to Krishna. This is how liberal Krishna is. He is, anytime, prepared to accept anything, as long as it is offered, as he says in that verse, with devotion. He's so very accessible. There's no reason why we can't approach Krishna, although he's so amazing and so great. So as Srila Prabhupada is explaining in the purport, everything has come from him. Therefore, everything we see is his property. In his beautiful book, Sharanagati, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur devotes one section to this limb of surrender, or Sharanagati, which is seeing that Krishna is the real maintainer of the devotee. In other words, I feel dependent on Krishna for my maintenance. This makes sense, doesn't it? Because he's the source of everything. What is it that we possess separately from Krishna? So one of those songs in that section is called Being Freed of I and Mine. Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes, I'm no longer going to think in terms of this is my possession and I am this body. I am male, I am female, I'm American, I'm Indian, I'm tall, I'm short, I'm old, I'm young. All these dualities have nothing to do with the spirit soul. Therefore, self-realization entails thinking of Krishna as my maintainer. He is the proprietor of everything, he's always present, and he's very caring and loving and ready to welcome us in a relationship. Bhoktaram yagya tapasam sarva loka maheshwaram soridam sarva bhutanam gyatva shantim richati. One who knows that I am the proprietor of everything, the real beneficiary, the purpose of all work, and the best friend of everyone. Now, I was raised in a religious tradition that taught about God as a very fearsome person. That God was prepared to punish the non-believers in an eternal lake of fire. He is telling us the rules he gave us in that particular tradition, 10 rules, And if you follow them, you can go to heaven. But if you don't follow them, then it's the eternal burning for you. But he loves you. And he needs your money. So this tradition that I grew up in did not satisfy me and so many people of my generation. In fact, it's getting even worse and worse as the years go by in North America, where I live and preach. Coming here to India it's just so inspiring and amazing to see how pervasive is the mood of spirituality amongst the people. My companions and I went over to the Kamala Mandir yesterday, the Lotus Temple, and huge throngs of people. And that was after passing the, what is it, Kala temple, another temple, where the lines were even longer. Yeah, so that is the great beauty of Bharatvarsha, isn't it? The land of Dharma. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that anyone who takes birth in this sacred country should make it his business, para upakar, to relieve the sufferings of others. People are suffering for want of this God consciousness. People are suffering because they're trapped in the mode of passion and ignorance, always anxious or always depressed. People are suffering because they are very attached to possessions they cannot hold on to. See, that is the theme of this prayer by Chitraketu, that you are the beginning and the middle and end of everything, but you do not have a beginning, middle, and end yourself. This is his essential message. So the beginning, middle, and end. In the Gita, Krishna says, Yehi samsparshaja boga. Sparsha means touch. So Yehi samsparshaja boga. Boga means, right, to enjoy. So one who wants to enjoy the sensations that come from sparsha, from touch, dukkha yonaya evate, is actually suffering. Dukkha, miseries. Why? Advanta dvanta konteya. Because the pleasures of the samsparsha boga have a beginning and an end. Advanta dvanta konteya. And therefore, nateshu ramate buddha. A buddha, an intelligent person, does not take pleasure in them. So it is the beginning and the end of everything that causes the misery in our lives. It is our attachment to that which we cannot sustain. For example, Chitraketu and his wife Kritadyuti, they had this beautiful baby boy who brought them so much joy. And then when he was gone, they suffered so much pain. See, so anything that we become attached to, we cannot keep, is a cause of misery. So let's think about some things. Just start with this very material body, right? We have this material body. In another song, Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings so nicely, I saw Krishna in the womb, but then I promised Krishna, this birth I promised to serve you. And then he was born. And what happened? All the relatives were there. Oh, such a nice baby boy. They coochie coochie coo. And Bhaktivinoda says, oh, and I thought, maybe this material world is not so bad. So then he says, I became very attached to my education. I became famous. I became wealthy. I had a family. But now, in my old age, I'm losing my vision. Bhaktivinoda actually lost his vision towards the end of his life, gradually. And everything is surrounded by darkness. And now I have seen that I've wasted my entire life. Krishna, you remember my promise to you in the womb. I forgot that promise. I broke that promise. What am I to do now? So, beginning, middle, and end. Our lives have a beginning. We bring great joy to our families. And then we proceed in our own family, our own career, our own life. And then all of a sudden we have to look back and it's all gone. Beginning, middle, and end. Everything we see has this beginning, middle, and end. Every relationship, every accomplishment, every possession, everything. Everything. We sit down and eat a meal. That's the beginning, very enjoyable. And then if we've eaten properly, it has its middle, or maybe adds to our middle. And then it ends, and you know what? So, this is the nature of the material world. It's all beginning, middle, and end. And it's dukkha yonaya evate. It's just a cause of misery. What are some other examples of things that have beginnings, middle, and end? Who can say? Anyone like to? Shout it out. A dream. A dream has a beginning, middle, and end. Yes. We don't know how we get into it, and then we experience it, and then all of a sudden it's over. Okay? What else? Speak up. Anybody? Yeah. Yes. Even going on pilgrimage. That's such a good example, because even going on pilgrimage in this world, right? We go, it's very blissful, we get the chance to associate with saintly people, and then we have to go. Of course, that pain is a very good pain. You know why? It's the little shadow of attachment to Krishna. We become attached to the devotees, to the holy place. When we have to leave, that pain we feel is a bit of separation. Even the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, Madhya Lila, and Antya Lila, right? What else? What else? Okay, we start chanting. Yes, so we start chanting with great enthusiasm. Around 8 or 9, we're looking at our watches. And as we get close to 16. Yes, this is our lamentable position, huh? As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Nam namakari bahudad nija sarva shaktis. Tatrarpita niyamata smarane nakala. He's invested all of his potencies in the holy name. And nakala ne nasmara. He doesn't even make hard and fast rules for chanting. Durdaivam, but the great misfortune, my misfortune, Durdaivam idrisham ihajani nanuraga. I have no taste. I have no taste. So if even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying that, what to speak of us? But chanting japa, this is a good example. It has a beginning, middle, and end. But it's something that we take up with some perspective, with some intelligence, with some idea of our long-term benefit in mind, right? Right? This is explained in Bhagavad Gita, that happiness in the mode of goodness has this quality. It may be poison in the beginning, but it's happiness in the end. Whereas happiness in the mode of passion, it's happiness, it's nectar in the beginning, but it's poison in the end. And happiness in the mode of ignorance is poison in the beginning and poison at the end. So, yes, this is the injunction of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, huh? That we should look to our shreyas, to our ultimate benefit. Actually, this reminds me, there was an interesting study some years ago done, I believe it was at Harvard, and they brought in a group of young children, age 5 years old, and they put these children alone in a room, and they put a candy bar in front of the children, each child, okay? So each child was brought in, the candy was placed in front of them, and the child was told, if you can wait 3 minutes, some short time, 3 minutes without eating this candy, we will give you 5 candies. You can eat it anytime you want and you get that candy. But if you wait just 3 minutes, we'll give you 5 candies. So some of the students, some of the children, all of them really, they all looked at that candy with very keen eye. And some of them picked it up, some of them smelled it, played with it. Some of them ate it. They just couldn't wait. And some of them managed to wait and get the 5 candies. So in the study, they followed these children for decades in their lives. And they found over 20, 30 years, 40 years, that the children who were able to wait earned 10 times more money on average than those who couldn't wait. This was their means of measuring Shreya. But anything worthwhile, it means, yes, we have to give some sacrifice in the beginning. Those things which are passionate, they're nectar in the beginning. And then they're poison at the end. But the beginning, for an enlightened person, a self-controlled person, it may be poison. It has a beginning, but it's tough. And in the middle, it may even be challenging. But if we stay with it till the end, that is nectar. Okay, so I was asked to speak this morning, not because I'm a particularly learned speaker, and there are far more learned speakers in our presence, such as His Holiness Atmanivedana Maharaj, for one, my dear friend. But I was asked to speak because I'm old. By Srila Prabhupada's grace, when I was 18 years old, I walked into the Hare Krishna temple in Portland, Oregon, and asked the temple president, who you may know, his name is Dinabandhu Prabhu in Vrindavan. I said, this looks fun, and these Malpuras are really good. Can I move in? So he had a very tough vetting program. He said, okay. So I just moved in. I quit my job, moved in, decided not to go to college because I wanted to study Prabhupada's books. And that was the best decision I ever made. It was a little tough. It was tough. My parents, my family was so disappointed. My friend, one of my best friends, he said, "You stand for everything I hate." So somehow I continued chanting, and I had no particular taste or qualification. But just staying has brought so many blessings in my life. Yeah. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So this is the gift that Srila Prabhupada has given to us all. Just somehow or other, let our Krishna consciousness have this beginning. Even if it is difficult, even if people don't appreciate it. As Madhavendra Puri, the great forebearer of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in our disciplic succession, he said that since I have taken up Krishna consciousness, my family thinks that I am frustrated. My friends think that I'm crazy. The learned scholars of Vedic rituals think I am misled. The wealthy people think I'm wasting my time. And the wise philosophers think I'm a know-it-all, puffed up, very proud. In other words, nobody likes it. And still, he said, my mind will not budge an inch from the determination to serve Govinda. But here's the kicker. He says, even though I'm unable to do it. So, in the beginning, there's a special introductory offer given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that we immediately feel transcendental bliss and relief from material distress, as described by Rupa Goswami. That's an immediate benefit of Krishna consciousness. Just like sometimes a retail store will have what they call a loss leader. They'll advertise milk for half price. So people will come in and buy the cheap milk, and then they'll buy other things as well. So just to get people to come in, they give a special introductory offer. So it is with Krishna consciousness, that in the beginning we experience some immediate relief from distress and some transcendental enjoyment. But then we come to what's called the clearing stage in our chanting and in our practice. And in the clearing stage, all of a sudden the rapid advancement seems to disappear. It's very much like a rocket ship that has to expend so much energy to exit the Earth's atmosphere and gravity. So much fuel has to be burned. But then, when it's in orbit, it may seem like you're not doing very much. But this is the important thing to understand. Once we take off in our rocket ship of Krishna consciousness and we come to a platform of steadiness, that middle stage, then we're actually going at a very rapid pace still. It just doesn't seem like it. For example, right now, as the Earth is turning in this latitude, we're moving about 800 miles per hour. Each one of us. Does it seem like it? Seems like we're very still. But if the Earth were to stop spinning for just one moment, just 1 second, what a disaster it would be. It would be like hitting a brick wall at 800 miles an hour, every one of us. So if just once we just step off the path of bhakti, boom, all of a sudden our momentum takes us into a very painful situation. For example, also, like if you're flying in an airplane, at first, when we take off, we feel the thrust and are pressed against the seat. But then when we're cruising, it seems like nothing is happening. Everything's very still. But if we were to stick our head out the window for just a moment, gone with the wind. So the middle of our Krishna conscious experience challenges our patience. Even if it doesn't seem like we're advancing very quickly, we are going very quickly. If we're chanting 16 rounds, if we're following the 4 regulative principles, that is amazing. It's miraculous in Kali Yuga. It is incredible. And we're progressing. Even if we may feel like it's going very slowly, even if we may lament that we can't do as much as we might like to do. Srila Prabhupada himself wrote to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, I am a householder, most of your disciples are brahmacharis, sannyasis, they're doing so much, I'm a householder, I can't do very much, do you have any instruction for me? This was his last letter to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta kindly replied that, same thing he had told him when they first met. You present this Krishna consciousness in the English language. That will do much good for you and for your audience. So that was his feeling. Even though he was in the middle of his household life, he could not seem to do very much. And indeed, for the next 40 years, 30 to 40 years, he was trying in different ways to fulfill that order of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and had virtually nothing to show for it. So patient he was in that middle stage, right? So very patient, so determined. Vyavasiyatmaka buddhir ekeha kuru nandana. And that patience is possible if we just understand that Krishna is present everywhere. And service to Krishna connects us with him anywhere, anytime. Once a devotee wrote to Srila Prabhupada from one of the foreign countries to which he had dispatched his 20 and 21-year-old disciples to open up Krishna consciousness. The devotee wrote, I'm holding programs, but nobody is coming. And Srila Prabhupada wrote back, that doesn't matter at all. What matters is that you're holding the program. Yeah. That's our success. So this is the middle stage of our Krishna conscious adventure. Patience. And then finally, the end. So how does our Krishna conscious experience end? Well, you could go to an astrologer. One of my friends was saying that he said, I've never had my chart done. And I'm not an astrologer, but I know how they all end. He didn't feel the need to spend the money on the astrologer. As Srila Prabhupada was once asked by a gentleman, can you tell me my future? Prabhupada said, yes, you will grow old and die. So the end of our lives is, of course, materially the worst part of our lives. It's something that we dread as soon as we're of age to understand what's going on. And we will avoid it at all costs, and we'll prolong our lives as much as possible because we don't want to end it. We don't want the end to come, that inevitable ending. However, when we live our lives in Krishna consciousness, as we get older, we become more and more disenchanted with the things of this world. When we're young, it's hard to see the samsparshaja bhoga, the enjoyment of the senses, as dukkha, as misery. It's hard to see like that. But as we get older, it becomes more evident. It's a beautiful thing. We lose our ability slowly to eat, to sleep, to mate, and to defend. Bit by bit, these capacities, these animalistic propensities, are no longer even an option. And that's a beautiful thing. It makes renunciation much easier. As we get older, like I said, just because you've been around, people will give you some respect. Like, some old tree is standing there. It's been around a long time. There's no fruits coming off it, but it's been there a long time. At least people will appreciate that you have stayed in Krishna consciousness. But when you die in Krishna consciousness, that's the best benefit of all. Who here has experienced being with a devotee as they're leaving their body? Most of you haven't. Okay. That's interesting. So over in the western part of the world where I live, most of the devotees are aging. All of my generation are all in their 70s and older. And so many of our God brothers and God sisters are leaving their bodies. So we have this experience repeatedly, that when the devotees are leaving their body, after a lifetime of practicing Krishna consciousness, they are able to do so with a great peace of mind, great bliss, really, and no fear. It's so pronounced that even the medical professionals are amazed when the devotees are leaving. Generally there's all kinds of weeping and pain and anxiety, but when the devotees are leaving, they are peaceful, and all the devotees around them are celebrating. This person has left this world in Krishna consciousness. They've succeeded in going back to Godhead. So as devotees, we're really outstanding in two particular things: cooking and dying. Preferably not at the same time, but yes, we have this great gift if we just live our life in Krishna consciousness, the beginning, the middle, and the end. They all have their challenges, but they're all auspicious. They're all auspicious. And this dukkha yonaya evate does not apply to such a devotee. So similarly, just as our lives as devotees have a beginning, middle, and end, so the Krishna consciousness movement that was started by Srila Prabhupada with so much sacrifice and so much wisdom and so much courage. This movement started just from Srila Prabhupada, taking the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the West, just as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had ordered him. It was very difficult in the beginning for him, right? He was basically homeless. He was just living here, living there, had no means of support. Can you imagine at an advanced age in a strange country having such faith in Krishna? And because he was connected with his Guru Maharaj through his service, he never felt alone. He never wavered. And then Krishna began sending him 1, 2, 5, 10 young men and women, and they were able to hear and understand what he was saying, miraculously. So then the movement began to grow very rapidly. And I'd just like to share with you some things, may I, from my experience in 52 years in ISKCON now. So I was not an intimate disciple of Srila Prabhupada by any means, and we're very blessed to have the memoirs of those who were. I did get to see Srila Prabhupada 40 or 50 times, hear classes, go on some morning walks, some darshans. And it was like for me being with Jesus. Yeah, I mean, I was 19 years old. I didn't really have the capacity to appreciate. I just had the sense, wow, this is like living the Bible that I'd read about all my life. I got to see Parthasarathi here in Delhi in a little suburban house that was a temple in that time, as I recall. Yeah, 19... What's that? Ah, yes, yes. And the neighbors, as I recall, were not very full of ananda about the temple, right? They did not like the kirtan in their quiet neighborhood. So just see how Krishna has changed things. But anyway, at that time, everything was happening in North America, in Europe, in Australia. That was where all the temples were growing and they were exciting and there were lots of blissful, just automatically people were joining all the time. Bright young men and women moving in, taking it up, and then Srila Prabhupada dispatched them to all different parts of the world to spread the movement further, including India. So the first batch of devotees who came to India, in, I think it was 1971, Prabhupada's initial World Sankirtan Party, not the very first, that was Achyutananda and some others, but the first group coming to do kirtan on a big scale and help him establish the movement in India. They were very, very raw devotees, young men and women. Giriraj Maharaj was one of them. And he tells a story about his own particular style of chanting. He was very enthusiastic about chanting and determined to control his mind. So to punctuate and to make sure he was paying attention to his chanting, at the beginning of each mantra he would jump up. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. I mean, physically jump up. And everybody just kind of accepted, okay, this is his thing. So the devotees got a ride on a very decrepit airline that stopped in Cairo on the way to India, on the way to Delhi. So there in Cairo, there had just been some political upheaval, so the atmosphere was very tense. And when the plane landed, the devotees got off, and there was Giriraj Das Brahmachari chanting his rounds did not want to deviate his mind from Krishna for a moment. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna. So because of the tense political situation, there were guards at the airport with guns. And as he was walking, every time he jumped, they go. But these were the devotees that Prabhupada had to work with here in India. So he asked each center in the West, please send one person to help us in India. Oh, and the beginnings in India were very difficult. Very difficult. Very difficult. The devotees were so stressed and they didn't know how to navigate things and who to trust, made so many mistakes. And then they were accused of being CIA representatives, clandestinely coming in to infiltrate. And these were the only people Prabhupada had to work with, so he kept saying, please come, please come. And then he started life membership, but there wasn't much money, so he had take money from the West. He said in one lecture in Bombay that, yes, all these men and money, this is coming from the West. He said, when I need money, I go to the American Express. And he was impressing his Indian audiences with these things. So India, in the West, that's where it was happening, and India was like Timbuktu. That was how it was when I was a young brahmachari. So, go to India? Only the very surrendered would go, like Giriraj Maharaj. So then, time passed. Anyway, so many things happened, but the bottom line is, over time, the fulcrum turned. The paradigm shifted. And what was really the happening place in the West became kind of difficult. And what was the difficult place in the East it blossomed, right? So what do we do now? This is the middle stage. Now we had the beginnings. Beginnings were tough all around, but now we're in the middle stage. And that's a good thing. The students of scholars in the field of religious history have noted that any religious organization that can endure for 50 years has a good chance of surviving, continuing. So the fact that ISKCON is still here after 50 years is, yes, so it's not only amazing, but it bodes well for our future. But still, in the middle, there are difficulties. So now the difficulty is, how do we balance this seesaw, east-west, west-east, right? And it's natural to feel that what works, this phrase, Atmanam Manyate Jigat, what works for me, everybody should, the whole world should. What I see, the whole world sees. Everybody sees things the way I do. But this is unwise, particularly in the context of developing ISKCON. Srila Prabhupada writes in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is, really the mature fruit of his whole preaching is contained in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Gita and Bhagavatam he was writing before ISKCON was big. And Chaitanya Charitamrita came at a time when ISKCON was well established, BBT well established. So what he wrote in there, what he writes in there is very, very germane and very important for our movement now. So one really crucial purport, he writes that you would not teach renunciation to someone from India the same as you would to someone from America or Europe. He says you cannot impose cultural values from one part of the world on another. To try to do so is impossible. Now, what did Prabhupada say? Where does the word impossible come from? A fool's dictionary. And yet he uses it, and he uses it in black and white in that purport. He says trying to impose cultural values across international lines is impossible. In fact, he goes so far as to say it is niyamagraha, it's a cause of fall down. So how do we balance if ISKCON is booming in India and is struggling in the West? So what do we do? You see, very different cultural applications of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy. In India, we are valued because we are protecting Dharma, right? Because we represent traditional values. Because we are holding tight to the great tradition that we represent. People value ISKCON, isn't it? But in the West, people have a great challenge to take even small cultural adaptations. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada, seeing this, did not impose any on 26 Second Avenue, did he? Just said, come and chant, just add Krishna to your life. He didn't require anyone to change their dress. He didn't require anyone to change their speech or their practices in life. Just add Krishna. Yena tena prakarina mana Krishna naveshayat. Somehow or other think about Krishna, the rules and regulations can come later. He wasn't totally liberal. He said, if I just eliminated these 4 regulative principles, I could have millions of followers. So he was uncompromising, and yet he was tolerant and patient in letting Westerners come to Krishna consciousness. So still it's like that in the West. That Westerners take a great deal of blood, sweat, and tears, even to get one person to take up Krishna consciousness. Whereas I see here in India so readily people appreciate and want to see the deities and want to take prasadam and have your association, right? Because it's in the DNA. And even in the West, the Indian immigrants, it's in their DNA, therefore they flock to the ISKCON temples even when the Westerners aren't. So this is our challenge in the West, right? Because if the temples become just kind of outposts for Hindu immigrants, it's totally irrelevant to the rest of the population. So we're challenged how to make that adjustment. So we're trying to deal with this. And the main thing is that we don't want to lay a lot of cultural expectations on the newcomers. And we want to train the devotees who are coming from the Indian community how to interact in a way with the local population so that the local people can see this is also relevant for me. And what that means is putting down the cultural barriers and just emphasizing the holy name. That's the simple technique. So we have the East and West. And there's a natural propensity for those in the West where things are booming to say, hey, look, if you guys in the West, in India, where things are booming, if you guys in the West would be more conservative, you'd grow like we are. We're growing because we're conservative, and if you weren't so darn liberal with your attitudes, you'd also grow. Do you ever hear this? So, yes, that some devotees feel that we're growing in India because we're very conservative culturally. And in the West, we're struggling to reach local populations because we're not conservative enough. We're too liberal. We're making too many compromises. This is the mood that comes sometimes. And it's a real issue. So as a preacher in the West, I just want to explain that no, we can't be conservative and successful at the same time. We have to follow what Srila Prabhupada did. And that's okay. That's fine. This diversity is welcome. Unity and diversity. Prabhupada said that should be the theme of every GBC meeting. Unity and diversity. You come together once a year in Mayapur and discuss unity and diversity. It's like a marriage, a good marriage, East and West. I've been married 42 years, and one thing I have learned is that, I always get the last word in an argument. Yes, dear. We've been fortunate, my devotee wife, Jita Mitra, and I, to have a very nice long marriage because we observe the old adage that 1 and 1 equals 11. Have you heard this? In a good marriage, 1 plus 1 equals 11. It's a chintya beta beta tattva. Right? You're simultaneously part of a couple, but you're also individuals. And when there's mutual respect and tolerance and acceptance that we're individuals, we have teamwork and we have individuality. Then the marriage can work. So similarly in ISKCON, we're challenged, East and West. We have to have tolerance, acceptance, and understanding. Then this marriage can work. This impossible dream that Srila Prabhupada established can go on successfully. So I'm here this morning to ask you, please be patient with us in the West. Please understand that the Westerners have very different needs. Please bear in mind that 80% of the population here is Hindu and 1% is Hindu over there. And please also see that if we're not reaching the local populations, we're not succeeding. That's Prabhupada. Paschatya Deshatarane, his unique contribution was that he could preach in the West. So we want beta abeta, simultaneously one and different, not just abeta, it's all one. We can't just take cultural values from one part of the world and impose them on the other. So if we observe this kind of tolerance and patience, ISKCON will have a glorious middle, and who knows, it may never end. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much. We have 8 minutes. Would anyone like to add any further reflections? Maharaj, any comments, questions? That's right, it's Sadhu Prabhu, right? We have till 9:30, correct? Okay. Oh, it's 6-minute fast. Oh, that's very intelligent. That you get out of class 6 minutes earlier. Okay, it worked for me, so. Maharaj, any thoughts?
Yeah. All I can say is the idiom of in the West we have, one man's food is another man's poison.
Yeah, thank you.
So